Talk to any IMOCA60 sailor about performance and it doesn't take long to figure out just how quick these offshore monohull master blasters really are. 20 knots is commonplace, even for the new boats on their maiden sail. 30 knots is easily possible and regularly attained, and some even talk of hitting 40 knots in the future. These are offshore weapons, that's for sure. Protecting crews from the tons of water that come firing over the deck has become a major issue. As a result, we've seen bigger coach roofs, and some even going to the extreme, like Hugo Boss, of sailing the entire boat from inside. This in itself, whether you're inside the boat or in a protected cockpit, has meant a change of approach when it comes to control line layout. Will Harris, who's sailing with Boris Herman, gave me the tour of their cockpit.
See here, we're currently sat in the cockpit, or the greenhouse I guess you call it. As you can see, we've got an enclosed space, we've got a roof over the top here, but we've also got all the lines and all the ropes and our pedestal based in here, and this is basically because we can trim and control the boat all from sat here or sat in this area while remaining pretty much completely dry. I hardly ever require my foul weather gear when I'm sat in here. So.
There's a lot of control lines down here, aren't there? Right down in this area. It's quite a pile of them.
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, we've got a main tunnel that comes from the mast, the foils, and all with that runs down the centre of the boat. You can probably see the tunnel just behind there, but all the ropes will come down into this central area, and you can see we've got plenty of different colours here, and they all snake about, and we're basically just trying to make it as obvious as possible for us while we're sailing to pick the right rope and make sure we're doing the right thing. So what you have here is you've got all the halyards, the tack lines, furling lines, and they'll either be on locks or they'll be on clutches which we can open and close using these control lines here. So you can see here, for example, we've got aft tack, and when it's on this knot it means that it's open. There's a constrictor up the front, and I release that, it'll pull forward, and if I was to then release the tack line, then it would be locked in place, and we could be happy that it's going to stay nice and solid there. But it's really nice layout to have it like this. It saves you wasting time to have to go to various different places. By having it all in one central position, it makes sailing the boat very easy. You've just got to spend a good few sessions learning the piano, I suppose you'd call it. You've got to learn which key to press and which key to pull.
What are all the? You got all these colours here for different balls. Is it just to identify, or is it showing a distance, or what?
No, so they're all. It's just to identify basically. So you can see we've got lots of different sizes and colours, and the idea being is the biggest ones are the ones that we touch the most. So for example, bit of French here. We've got a coup de grand bar, so that's main sheet. So we're controlling that a lot, so therefore it's a big one. And we've got another one over here, which is our kicker, or basse de grand voile, which is the kicker of the mainsail. So that's another big one we're always playing with. And when the boat becomes overpowered, we know that we can run from the back all the way to the front and pull this very quickly, and we can release the power if we need to. And then you've got much smaller ones, things that we don't want to pull. For example, we've got the écarteur over here, which is the control lines for the outboardness of the jib. And we've also got the foil control lines, which is this red one here, which is much smaller. You know, we don't want to be suddenly releasing the load in the foil, because it can do damage to the boat, so we're always careful with them. And also the tack line on the J3, this is quite a small one, very low down and black, so we tend to try not to pull that so much. At the base you've got the lower levels, we have the halyards and the tack lines, and that's just because it's a nicer angle to run to the winches, and they're generally the ones we're using the most. You don't want to generate wear in them too often. And then higher up you've got, in the centre here, we've got our 3 reefs, so we pull them on off at the same time. And then at the sidelines here you've got the furling lines for both the aft and forward tack, and you can see we've got all the bags laid out around the boat so that you can try and keep it as tight as you can. I mean, you can see right now we've got a bit of a mess. We're doing a lot of work, and this is kind of what the cockpit will look like after you've done a hurried sail change. So, you know, say we're doing a sail change, you haven't got time to tidy up the ropes and stuff, so you'll end up in a situation like this. You sit down, catch your breath, and you'll start tidying the ropes up straight away, ready for the next manoeuvre, because the thing that slows you down the most is having a line get tangled or caught, especially when you're double-handed. If you've got one person on the bow all the way over there, one person steering the boat or winching or something, if they have to stop and untangle something, you lose a lot of time. So by having it all, each rope in its own individual bag, it tries to minimise the risk of that happening and make the manoeuvres as fast as possible.
How long did it take to learn these? I mean, I know you said you say, you know, you've sailed open 60s before and IMOCA60s before, but it is pretty complex nonetheless, and you just spent most of the season in a figure 03, which is a rather different beast.
Yeah.
How long does it take just to get your head around this?
So I memean, if you walk down to any of the boats in this marina here, any of the 30 boats, they'll all have a different version of this. You know, some of them have them split. Lots of them have different ways the ropes are laid out. So if you're used to seeing kind of this sort of setup, then it sort of took me 3 or 4 sailing sessions on this boat to actually understand the setup and get my head around the ropes. But you know, I'm always learning, always getting quicker and quicker at knowing which of these to grab and knowing which one to pull. But you know, I'm always trying to take a bit of caution at the same time. You know, I'm always in the back of my head, if you pull the wrong one, that could be it, the mast could fall down. So and it's literally like that. You know, so, you know, if you release the wrong tack line, it's causing the it's producing the load, and it's producing the rising moment of the boat. So if you're unfamiliar with it, then a few months I think to really get your head around it. So. This is basically where I'll be sat for 2 weeks. You can control both. Turn the instruments around like this. I've got my autopilot here and the instruments there, and also my keel can. And I can sit here and I can look at the numbers and control the autopilot. And at the same time, I've got a window looking forward, and I can see underneath the jib, and I can see anything that's coming there. And also I've got a window here to look at the trim of the sail. So it's really your dream setup here. You can basically control everything on the boat from sitting in one place, which is exactly what you're looking for in a short-handed boat. So.
There's a lot of talk this season because there's a few boats that are sort of totally encapsulated. So Hugo Boss and Apiva's got a similar setup. But it looks like a radical thing, but actually it's not in a way, is it? Because I mean, even here, you're basically inside.
Exactly. You know, to go from a boat like this to Hugo Boss, the difference is they do literally have a wall at the back as well. But you know, how we're sat right now, it's basically inside anyway. You know, when we were doing the Fastnet race, we didn't put our foul weather gear on until we actually got to the rock, and it was 35 knots. We spent 24 hours in pretty horrible conditions with water everywhere, but because we didn't need to change sail, there's no need for us to go outside. We can do everything from in here, so we no need to put foul weather gear on. And that kind of seems to be the future of short-handed sailing like this. Why put yourself in these extreme conditions all the time if you don't need to?
But I suppose some people would say, well, but you can't feel the conditions. It's sheltered from here, and so. But do you just get used to that? Do you just get used to the feel of the boat and what it needs?
No, yeah, you're completely right. It's a completely different way of how you set up the sail. You know, the first few times when I got on this boat, you have to trim the sail from out the window. It's very bizarre because you've got water droplets and stuff in the way, and trying to understand how you're looking at the sail, because we're looking at it from a further forward position. I think on Hugo Boss it's even further forward. You have to really understand how to trim the sail and try and put the same picture as if you were trimming it from the outside and from that same angle position. But then again, we're always sailing to numbers and things like that, so if you're sailing at 100% of the boat, then you're fairly confident that you've got the boat set up. If you're not 100%, then you know you've got to change something, and that's probably when I might go put my foul weather gear on and go take a proper look from out the back.
And then get soaked.
Exactly. Yeah.